Welcome to this lab demo. So in this demo, we're starting with just cursor loaded and a folder that we want the project to go into, and that's it. We're actually going to use prompts to have AI through cursor build out everything. Again, this is going to set up the entire project structure for us, and this is going to be a React Node.js project. So React is the front end, and Node.js runs the back end. So we're going to start by looking at the prompt that we'll use, first one inside a cursor. And this is a tool called Git. And this is just going to help us keep the different versions of our code in case we ever make a mistake or do something we don't want to actually do. We can roll it back pretty easily. And you can see this is just a text editor. You could use any editor you like. I'm basically telling the AI agent that this folder is currently empty, so it knows what to expect. I want it to initialize a new Git repository. That's what we call it when we're saying, hey, store versions of this information. And then I'm giving it sort of a bulleted list. I want it to run git init. I want it to create an ignore file, and that way not everything needs to keep versions, like the different modules that we use, other people have written. That's the node modules there. The distribution, which is where it puts it together to actually use it on the site, some environment settings, and then the behind the scenes stuff, the DS store. And then we want to make an initial commit, which means save the initial version of the folder. And the comment on that will be initial commit project scaffold. So again, we're building out the folder scaffolding for this during the course of this project, or this demo, sorry. And then I just, at the end, I've said, after completing these tasks, confirm what you did. That's really all I'm saying. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of that and copy it. And then we're going to toggle over here to cursor. Now in cursor, we're just going to open a project. And this is giving me folders. I'm going to go straight into development, into lab demos. And this will be lab demo 1. And I'll click open. And here it is. It's just blank. You can see the folder structure on the left, totally blank. Over here on the upper right is where we'll paste that prompt. That's exactly what we just talked about. And I'll press enter. And now we can just watch it do its work. It's going to prompt me a couple of times when it needs to run its own command. So you can see here how it has chosen to change to the correct folder and run the git init and then print out. I say print out, but basically put the information that's needed into this ignore file so it doesn't get versions saved of it. Add that file to the project essentially, and then commit those changes, track those changes with this comment here. That's what's going to happen when I hit run. And the reason it asks for that confirmation is because the AI agent within Cursor is now executing that on my local system, right? So it's not just writing code to a file. It's changing folders. It's doing these things. All right, so it tells us that the git initialization hit a permissions issue. It will rerun it with elevated permissions. Totally good. Great, and it told us what it did. And you can see on the left, there is a git ignore right here. All right, so let's move on here to lab step 2. Now, step 2 is where we're going to have it start to put the actual scaffolding in place. We're going to have 2 groupings here, one called server, one called client. They'll be in their own folder structures. The server will be the backend with Node.js, and the client side will have React.js in it. You can see all the individual bullet items I'm telling it to do, and we'll talk about those in a minute, but let's get this started. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it over here like I did the other one, and then I'll press enter. All right, so it's asking us to do something new. This is basically going to create the folder server that we talked about, and then of course in a little bit it will create the folder client. Notice here, after it creates the folder, it's going to change into that folder and it's going to run this npm init, and then install Express and cores, and then finally install this node monitor. So all of these things are helping, again, just set up the scaffolding, right? So this isn't code that's actually designing our app or anything like that. This is the structure that our app is going to run within. It makes it possible to create our app. Same thing here. Now this is actually writing some code. This bottom portion here is creating the JavaScript code that will actually go into the server.js file. And this will run like the API side of things, right? So whenever the front end makes a request or needs to do something, it will talk to this file. All right, let's see what it pulled us here. And now it's making a package JSON file. Sorry, I think I said JS. The package JSON file is where Node stores all of its packages, and the packages are like when it is using libraries that other people have written, so we don't have to write them. So this is where it would list them out and say what version it specifically needs and so on. All right, so here we're creating the client side of things now. You can see it showing you some of the things that it's doing. With Node and those type of products, including React, you can get warnings a lot of times. Most of the time, it's really not a big deal if the project it doesn't run, and then you'll have to fix that. But here, obviously, is building up this API. Notice it's going to run on port 5050 in the web browser. And of course, that's because we're running it locally. Eventually, whenever you put your project out to be consumed by the public, that 5050 will be changed to the typical port number, but we'll talk through all that when we get there. Looks like we're about done. So now it's running the get add current folder and commenting on that commit that it is the full stack React and Node lab demo. Now it's summarizing what it did. So over here on the left, let's take a quick look. Remember earlier when we started, we just had this top folder that we selected. We made this through our operating system, whether you're using Finder in Mac OS or whether you're using Windows or File Explorer, depending on which version you have of the Windows operating system. Now, underneath it has first step, we created this get ignore, and then client and server. Because we added Node to run the server, we have Node modules as well as a package.json file. So all of these are things that are part of the project, basically being built out so that we can fully create the project, like the details that we care about now. Flip back over here to my text editor, and let's just quickly walk down each of these. Notice at the very top, I told it running a full stack JavaScript project, I told it what server was going to be and what the client folder was going to be, and then I established these requirements for the server here. Reverse that because I dragged it to the wrong place. Let's see here. So I've told it to use common.js, which is JavaScript sort of library or a version, if you will. The server slash package.json scripts. So I'm going to have a dev and a start. Dev will run with more monitoring. Start would not installation, or I'm going to install these dependencies as part of the installation, express and cores. Here in the server index.js, I've talked about the things that I want to happen there. Specifically, I want to show port 5050 and the two different APIs I wanted it to create. And then that way we can call and test it with health or echo. And then on the client side, same thing. We're using Vite, which just makes the development a lot easier. Basically causes a lot of refresh as we're developing and lots of things like that just help us along the way. I went ahead and gave it a title. Didn't have to. You can title it whatever you want. And then the different pieces that I want in the root package. Things most important here, I think, are we're not using Docker. We don't want that. That just adds extra overhead. That you can copy and paste this directly and just change the basics like the title. We'll add more API stuff later as we actually develop. And then here, this last part is where Git was being updated. So if we want to run the project, we can actually do these steps. Also, I want to show you back over here inside of Cursor. Notice it went ahead and just said how to run everything, right? So on the root project, you can run these commands. If you only want to run the server, if you only want to run the client, you would have to change to those folders. If we do this from the root folder, right, which is this top folder, lab demo 1, then it runs both. And then to actually see what it does, we would have to come over to the web browser here. So we can do those steps. On the view menu, we can go to terminal. Notice it brings it up down here at the bottom. It starts in the root folder here. So I think we'll just hit this little copy button on the right, which is going to take npm run dev, and we'll paste it down here and run it and do what we get. I'm going to say don't open because I'm going to go ahead and copy it, and then we'll paste it over here in the browser I already had it open. And notice all it's doing is showing the title I gave it. It has a button, by the way, check server health, and look, it gives me a message back. So all of that was part of what we told it to do, super quick and easy. So really, what we've just done kind of eliminates step 3 here. We could have ran this, but there's really no need to. So because we just used the commands that Cursor gave us. And then here on this fourth one, we can run this ourselves if we want. This just shows us what happened, but we would need to run it down here. In this bottom section where the terminal is, every time it had it prompted us with run, then it was running these things in the terminal behind the scenes where we couldn't see it. So with terminal open, we can run these things manually. We can also click plus, and this will create a new terminal. And now see how we have both? We can toggle between them. And so right here, I can basically paste in each of these. I'm just going to do one at a time. The get log online, and then get show. And then each of these, it showed us the commits that we made. And I wouldn't worry too much about that. We'll talk more about Git later and how to do it more fully. But this is the basic beginning, right, for any project. I know you haven't made anything. It basically doesn't do anything other than show you it technically is listening to us like a server, although it's all running locally right now. And so the next steps would be, what are we going to build? And then we'd start building from there. All right, that's it for this demo. Let me know if you have questions, and then move on to the next one.